How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Marco here from 14P, and I am bringing you some off-season buy-sell. So really what we're talking about is some off-season takes, some off-season rumors, and what we think, or what I think is going to happen, and what would the fantasy implications of these things or these takes happening. And we're going to dive into just three takes, three off-season rumors, and we are going to jump into them in just a moment. But I want to remind you, you can follow us on Twitter at 14P_fantasy. You can follow me on Twitter at Marco_14P, as well as subscribe to our Patreon, where you can get access to rankings, which just got updated yesterday. As well as Dynasty rankings, rookie rankings. They're all going to be tiered. We're going to be releasing different content all in season. We might even do a newsletter. We're trying to figure that out right now. But there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon for 14P and all of our Patreon subscribers. And we also recently launched our Instagram, our Facebook, and our TikTok. There's not a ton of content there yet, but we are going to be releasing quite a bit. So go ahead and follow us at 14P_fantasy at all of those all those social media platforms. And you can always DM us any questions or drop them below as well. Okay. So let's just jump into it. The first one is not a ton to talk about because it is truly just a rumor right now, but let's jump into it. So DK Metcalf is getting a lot of conversations about, hey, is he going to get traded? Are the Seahawks going to move on from him, from Tyler Lockett? What are they going to do? So I'll preface with this. DK Metcalf is probably one of the most physically gifted, if not the most physically gifted wide receiver at this point in the NFL. And I think when it comes to DK, he has been a victim of inconsistency from the quarterback position, inconsistency in his play truly as a young wide receiver, but also just the offensive scheme and the play calling has also been very inconsistent. I talk about this quite a bit on other videos, how the Seahawks are notorious for having this midseason identity crisis of offense, and it changes from a pass-heavy offense to, hey, let's run a lot more, and that can make both Lockett and Metcalf kind of volatile options, even if their ending season numbers end up looking really, really nice. And then last season, of course, there was the question marks of Russ got hurt, and so he had to play with Geno Smith for a while. And he had some good games, but ultimately it did slow down what he was able to do in the season. He just fell under, I think, 1,000 yards. He was around 965 yards receiving. He did score 12 touchdowns. That's going to be one of the giftings of his frame and his physical attributes, is that he's going to be able to score touchdowns even if he's got guys like Geno Smith back there. But the big rumor is DK Metcalf going to be traded? And a lot of people are saying that they think the Seahawks are going to make a move like this. And I am on the side of yes. I think during the NFL draft is when we're going to see this happen. I think Metcalf does get traded. And honestly, especially with their situation with having Drew Lock as their primary quarterback right now, there is no situation that I am not buying every opportunity for DK Metcalf. Even if he has Drew Lock, that's going to hurt him, of course. Maybe he's not a top 8 wide receiver. Maybe he's not a top 10 wide receiver, but he's for sure a top 15 PPR wide receiver on the Seahawks. So if he gets traded, he could end up with, people are talking about potentially the Packers. And if he ends up with Aaron Rodgers, there is basically no one who's going to be able to produce DK Metcalf. I don't think the Packers are an actual landing spot. People have been talking about the Packers as one of the teams who are really desperate for a wide receiver. They'll probably address that in the draft. But there's other teams, the Jets, and that might not seem as exciting because Zach Wilson had a little bit of a rough season last year. But Zach Wilson having a guy like DK Metcalf added to Elijah Moore, they have a very good offensive line that is still developing and growing quite a bit that I'm excited about. Michael Carter and whoever else they add in the draft potentially in that backfield. But that is a team that I think could be a phenomenal fit for DK Metcalf, and it's definitely a step up from Drew Lock. So right now, what I would recommend to you guys is go ahead and scoop up shares of DK Metcalf at a discount, and you can pitch it as, well, Drew Lock's going to be there, and that's going to hurt him, because it will. But I don't see any way that DK Metcalf is falling out of the top 15 year over year in PPR leagues at the wide receiver position. He's just too physically gifted. He is a touchdown just hog, and when it comes to just elite talent at the wide receiver position, he might not be as crisp of a route runner and do all of the fine things really, really well, but he has improved on them every single year of his career. And I think we're going to continue to see that. And just his match of actual wide receiver talent and his physical ability is going to be something that you want to make sure you have on your dynasty teams. All right. So let's jump next to Alvin Kamara. And so there's not a lot of rumors here, but I think this is the first season that you can have legitimate concerns about what Alvin Kamara is going to do on the Saints team in this offense. And, he's in his age 26, 27 season. And right now I am okay moving Kamara for, not nothing. You can make a move where you're able to get quite a few pieces back for a guy like Alvin Kamara. He is still a perennial, kind of similar to DK, just much older, perennial top 15 running back. I think he's probably going to be near the bottom of that this year because of what the trends we started to see last year. So they're bringing Jameis back. Maybe they draft a quarterback, but ultimately what we see from the Saints offense, it is not just a bottom half of the league offense, it's a bottom third of the league offense. Kamara last season changed entirely how they use him. And I think that is actually going to be not helping Kamara. It's going to be hurting him quite a bit. So he averaged in his career outside of last season, 168 rushes a season. Last season, he saw 240 rushes. Not great for Kamara when you look at what this is doing for him as longevity and offense look. It's just bad. It's a bad look for Kamara. With a less productive offense, him getting more rushing opportunity because he has to is not an exciting thing. And it wouldn't be bad if he wasn't also if he was seeing the same amount of receptions or targets. But when it comes to his target share, that has actually dropped as well. Or sorry, not target share, but his overall targets, that has dropped as well. He averaged, he saw it on average, a drop of around 40 targets from last season to the rest of his career. So losing 40 targets is a big thing, even with that bump in rushing opportunity, especially because of this inefficient offense. Targets are a more valuable opportunity than a rush. And when it comes to an offense that is bone dry, really, and that's what we've seen from this offense, and that's kind of what we expect to be another bottom third in the league offense, bottom half of the league offense, rushing opportunity is less efficient. It is less warranted to be something that you want to value, especially in PPR, half PPR leagues. And so when you look at a guy like Kamara, he is trending down as just an aging running back, but also now on a team that is under a new coach. He is in a new offensive system with a quarterback in Jameis Winston, who, if he can stay healthy, I think is a fine quarterback for fantasy football and okay for the NFL, but it's not a quarterback that's really going to help Alvin Kamara succeed. And who knows what's going to happen with Michael Thomas, but I am trying to move Kamara for a good amount of pieces, whether it be draft picks or a proven younger asset. But I think right now we could see the beginning of the end for Alvin Kamara if his usage doesn't revert back to what we're used to, or he at least sees that target bump that we were hoping for that we would see last season with the rushing production or the rushing opportunity. All right, so this is the next one that we're going to jump into, AJ Dillon. So AJ Dillon's got a ton of hype this offseason. Obviously, Aaron Jones got a little banged up at the end of last season, and that gave AJ Dillon opportunity. And I'll say this, I have AJ Dillon in my redraft rankings, in my dynasty rankings, ahead of Aaron Jones. And, in PPR leagues, depending what they do in the draft, Aaron Jones probably will see a pretty large bump in target share, and that's going to be a nice thing. I think they're both going to be very good running backs in 2022 specifically. But when we talk about looking at things through the dynasty perspective, AJ Dillon's the easy one. Redraft, I think, is where a lot of people have some issues of putting AJ Dillon truly ahead of him. And I think what we need to look at for AJ Dillon is some of the periphery here, because AJ Dillon, believe it or not, at his size and strength, people see him as just a bulldozer runner. And he definitely is that. But he actually has a 92% catch rate over his career. And last season, he caught 34 of 37 passes. And really what you see from AJ Dillon is a guy who's able to do a little bit more than people are expecting from his frame and the prototype of what he is to the NFL. Derrick Henry is also this big guy, but he started catching a couple passes. I think AJ Dillon can do it better than Derrick Henry when it comes to catching passes and being involved in the passing game. So what I love about AJ Dillon is the fact that he is catching the football when he's throwing the football. Not throwing a ton, but when he does get the opportunity, he takes advantage of it. So that's a plus for him. He scored double-digit fantasy points in every game that he saw at least 30% of the snaps, and that's with Aaron Jones there or not. Sure, Aaron Jones got hurt around week 9, so he wasn't fully healthy after that. But AJ Dillon had a couple games above or before week 9, before the Aaron Jones injury, where he saw over 30% snap share, and he scored double-digit fantasy points. So I think he has a really safe floor as well. And then when you look at this offense and what they're going to have to do, they're going to have to run more for sure. Just with the weapons they have right now, they've lined up to be a team that runs the ball significantly more than they have in the past, whether they have Aaron Rodgers or not. And Aaron Jones has been kind of the go-to guy for them, but I think we saw a little bit of a shifting of the guard. We saw more valuable opportunity near the red zone, shift to AJ Dillon last season, and sure, that could have been part of the injury. But even if you look at some of the Aaron Jones stats when he was fully 100% healthy to AJ Dillon when he kind of took over, when Aaron Jones was banged up, he was playing, he was not playing. So Aaron Jones in his first 9 games when he was fully healthy scored 3 rushing touchdowns. And his overall rushing yardage wasn't tremendous, but it was decent. It was around, I think he averaged around, I had it pulled up here 1 second. He averaged around, sorry, my notes are slowing down on me here. Jones. Yeah, so he averaged right around 73 yards rushing a game, which is great. But Dillon wasn't really far behind once he kind of took over the reins. So when Dillon took over the last 8 games of the season, where Aaron Jones, like I said, he was injured, he kind of played, he didn't play. He actually scored 5 rushing touchdowns. We kind of expect that from the big body back, but he also averaged at least 60, or he had at least 60 rushing yards in 5 of those 8 games, and he averaged also 3 receptions and just under 30 yards. So again, is he going to be a threat to Aaron Jones in the receiving game? No. Is he going to be in the running game? 100%. I think he takes over the early down work for sure. And then he still is able to get in there and pass blocking and receiving opportunity. So I think AJ Dillon this year I am buying 100% that he will outproduce Aaron Jones in 2022 and beyond. So I think he's a guy that you can get right now, not for super cheap, but you can get him for cheaper than you're going to be come next season. So AJ Dillon is a huge, huge buy for me. All right, guys. Well, that is it. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know if you have any questions. Hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P, or you can find us both on Twitter at 14P_fantasy. Justin's on Twitter at Justin_14P. You can find us all. Subscribe to the Patreon, subscribe to this channel, YouTube. I think it's somewhere over here. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time. Peace.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.